Okay, it is 2 o'clock, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. Thank you for joining me today. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Karen Whittemore. I am a family nurse practitioner. I have been in practice for 25 years, and I have seen medicine go through a lot of changes. I was beginning my career back in the day when everything was all paper charting. Now everything's computerized. A lot of our understanding of diseases has changed. The way we treat disease processes has changed. But I have never seen anything quite like the LifeWave technology with the LifeWave patches. And I want to go into these a little bit briefly today, explain how they work, why you may want to use them. But I'd also like to go into information on how we can enhance the magnificence that the patches are already, how we can enhance and get the fullest advantage out of these patches. So first of all, I'd like to explain what these are. These are made up of organic nanocrystals. And what they do, it's a form of light therapy, phototherapy, frequency medicine. In fact, back in the day, Einstein said that frequency medicine would be the medicine of the future, and the future is here. If you think about when you go out in the sun, this is a perfect example of frequency medicine. We go out in the sunlight hits our skin and signals our body. There's an evolutionary design in there. And when that frequency hits us, it tells our bodies to start producing vitamin D. The sun isn't actually giving us vitamin D, it's telling us to make vitamin D. And that is the principle that these patches work with. So when our body's own light, so we don't see that light unless we're using far infrared goggles, night vision goggles, and we are seeing that light in the form of heat. That heat, it actually hits the patch, gets infused with a frequency, goes back into our skin, and triggers our bodies it tells our bodies to start producing copper peptide. And copper peptide is really unique because it will activate our stem cells. So this is a wonderful way of indirectly activating our own stem cells. And it is clinically proven to enhance overall health. In fact, the NIH, the National Institute of Health, has this to say that says that copper peptide stimulates blood vessel and nerve outgrowth and increases collagen and elastin for visible anti-aging. Copper peptide's ability to improve tissue repair has been demonstrated for skin, lung connective tissue, bony tissue, liver and stomach lining. Copper peptide has also been found to possess powerful cell-protective actions, such as multiple anti-cancer activities and anti-inflammatory actions, as well as having anti-anxiety, anti-pain, and anti-aggression activities. So this is just the first part of what it's talking about copper peptide alone, without increasing our stem cells, enhancing our stem cells. So when we add that into the mix, as we age, we tend to lose our stem cells, and our stem cells become less active. They're not doing as much for us. So anything we can do to activate our stem cells is a huge, big deal. Our stem cells can become any cells that are needed in the body. So who came up with this? David Schmidt is the inventor and founder and CEO of the LifeWave company. He has over 130 US patents. He is a scientist and inventor. He's a 2-time recipient of the Advanced Technology Award from the International Hall of Fame. And he first thought of this concept when he was working on an idea for the military. He was trying to help Navy SEALs to be able to stay submerged in a mini sub for 30 hours without the use of stimulants or other type of harmful chemicals to keep them awake and active. And that's where he first came up with the energy enhancer, the first prototype patch. And that was way back 20 years ago is when he decided to actually take this patch and bring it to market. So LifeWave has actually been in business for 20 years now. And the X39 is kind of our jewel, our crown glory patch because of the way it can activate stem cells. And with this, some of the benefits that people have experienced rapid pain relief, reductions in inflammation. In fact, within 24 hours, there is a reduction in inflammation, and that is a major contributor to most of our disease processes, or involved in some way with disease processes. It also supports wound healing. We have amazing testimonials of people who have had rapid healing of wounds. It increases energy and vitality, helps with mental clarity, enhances sports performance, and helps you recover more quickly from exercise, and helps improve skin appearance too. So a lot of wonderful things. And last week, we kind of talked about the placebo and nocebo effect, and how the brain works, and how we can start activating with our own intentions and emotions, how we can actually enhance and maybe even direct the stem cell patches. One of the first things that you have to understand, though, about being able to access that is there has to be a certain amount of suggestibility. So, and by the way, I'm getting this information out of Joe Dispenza's book, You Are the Placebo. I don't know how many of you went to the LifeWave conference this year. It was fabulous back in October. And John Maxwell talked, and he talked about reading every day to improve ourselves. And I have been reading every day, and this is what I'm reading now. And it's been a really fun book to read. But he tells a story in there about Ivan Santiago. Ivan Santiago was driving home from work one day. It was just an ordinary day, nothing special. Moments later, he finds himself standing outside of a hotel with a group of paparazzi who are busy shooting off their cameras, watching this dignitary coming out. As soon as the dignitary comes out, shoot, shoot, shoot. He pulls out his gun and shoots 3 times. And sorry, hang on. Sorry about that. Okay, so somebody comes out, he shoots him 3 times, and there he is, blood all around, and looks dead. Moments later, Tom Silver comes out, puts a hand on his shoulder and a hand on his forehead, and tells him, on the count of 5, you're going to wake refreshed. When I say fully refreshed, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, fully refreshed. And he completely comes out of it. So this is somebody who is very suggestible. They actually did this experiment, and he was part of this research study that he didn't really know anything about what they were doing. He just knew that, the day before, they had 185 volunteers who came to be part of this study. And what the researchers were actually trying to do with the study is they wanted to know, is there anybody out there so suggestible that they would actually kill another person if they were told to kill somebody else? Because normally our analytical mind would tell us, no, that's not something that we should do, right? So how suggestible do you have to be able to get to the point where you can kill another person? Well, out of these 185 volunteers, they weaned them down, and there's only about 5 to 10% of the population that is really suggestible, that can just hear something like, oh, your cancer is cured, and be suggestible enough to allow that to happen. It's a very rare thing to find somebody that suggestible. So when they found these, they weaned it down to 16 people, and from the 16 people, they went through a process of deciding, okay, well, who would be permanently damaged by going through this experiment, and weaned out 4 more people. So there were 11 people left in the experiment, and they had them go meet the researchers at a restaurant and told them, hey, when you sit down on the restaurant seat, as soon as you sit down, that seat is going to be hot. It's going to be so hot, you're going to just want to strip off all of your clothing down to your underwear. And that further weaned things out, because there were only 4 people that were suggestible enough to actually not have their analytical mind interfere and tell them, hey, this is not proper. There were 4 people in that group that actually stripped down to their underwear in a public place. So of those 4 people, they decided, okay, the next test, they got a metal tub, a deep tub, filled it with ice water, and ice cubes were floating in it. And they had them climb into the tub, submerge themselves, and see how long they could stand to be in there. Most of them could get to like 8, 16 seconds. There's an automatic nervous system response. Your automatic nervous system kicks in as soon as the ice water hits your nipple line, and it tells you to take a deep breath. It's a homeostasis process to try to balance out the body. But when Ivan Santiago got in that pool, his heart rate never changed, and it actually lowered. They had suggested to him that this was a warm pool, like being in a jacuzzi, and that he would be very relaxed. And he stayed in there for a full 2 minutes before the researchers finally said, okay, we've got to stop. We don't want to cause any harm, and had him get out of the tub. So that is somebody very, very suggestible. Most of us are not that way. But just think, if we were that suggestible, we could do amazing things. And what they did with the experiment is they told him that he actually hadn't been selected as part of the research program, but if he wouldn't mind stopping on his way home from work for an exit interview. And it was during that interview that they actually hypnotized him one more time to go outside, find a red backpack that was sitting on a motorcycle that had a gun in it, wait in the line with the paparazzi, and that there was a very bad man that was going to be coming out of the hotel and to kill the bad man. And they had a stunt man who actually had blood packs attached to him, so that when he fired the prop gun, he acted like he was dying, and completely forgot that he had no idea that he had done any of this until the person who hypnotized him, Tom Silver, gave him the prompt that he would actually remember everything. So what does it take to be that suggestible? I mean, it's nice to be suggestible because, boy, we could cure all kinds of problems. We could tell ourselves that we are so successful that we have so much confidence. We could be millionaires. We could do all of these amazing things. We could compose creative songs and work ridiculous hours without sleep. We could do all kinds of crazy things if we were suggestible enough and told ourselves that we wanted to accomplish these types of things. But on the other hand, if we're so suggestible, we can also be gullible. We can succumb to anything anybody tells us, whether it's true or not, and that's not a good thing either. Our analytical mind is there for a reason, and it's helping us to think rationally, think wisely, make good decisions, run when we need to run, stay composed when we need to be composed. It helps us to think. It helps us to know right from wrong, good from bad. So we want our analytical mind, but sometimes it's nice to know how to access the subconscious mind where that suggestibility can happen, so that we can give ourselves those prompts of, hey, I want my back to be straight again. I want my acne to go away. I want my Crohn's disease, my stomach problems. I want these things to go away. How do we access that area? Well, that area is not in the neocortex. So the neocortex is where our analytical mind is. We have to go beneath that, where our limbic system is. And the limbic system is all about emotions. And where those emotions happen, that's where we have our hormones and chemicals, which can upregulate and downregulate genes. Many things can happen in this area. And in fact, trauma counselors are very aware that people that are traumatized, when they have a high level of an emotional experience, They're often extremely suggestible during those times. So they have to be very careful with these types of clients because they are so vulnerable. And it is often during those times of trauma that some of these people can develop a lot of health problems because of that suggestibility when they're told you're no good, you're not worthy, um, you're not worth it. When these things are repeated to us all the time, or you're ugly, or you're old, or you're fat, or you're this, or you're that, and you have that emotion that's attached to it, that becomes a suggestion that we can end up taking on as part of our core belief and actually change our very DNA according to that suggestion. So understanding this information can help us to program our bodies in ways that we want, but it can also help us to understand how we may have caused some programming in the past that we don't really want with our bodies. One thing I do love about the patches is when you put them on, you don't even have to think about it and they work. You don't have to put the energy, you don't have to sit there and meditate for hours or get in with the right intention. They just work, but you don't know how they're going to work. Your body has a mind, a body intelligence of its own, and it can direct what it feels is the most important for you to start healing. But if you want to even move past that and consciously, subconsciously, I should say, direct these patches into areas that we want, then we have to be able to access the limbic system and use our emotions. Now, one thing that we know with science is when we have negative emotions, we tend to downregulate genes. So when we have thoughts of, I'm not worthy, emotions of self-pity, of victimization, of pain, when we're feeling these things, that causes us to downregulate genes. It inhibits our immune system. We're working against ourselves when we are experiencing these forms of emotions. Whereas when we're experiencing love, joy, happiness, fun, playfulness, creativity, these things are positive and they tend to upregulate. And that's what we really want. We really want to upregulate things. So we want to get our brain in a state where we can give ourselves these emotional and intention suggestions so that we can access what we want to access. And so our brain actually has these wave patterns. And depending on the stage of where our brain is at with activity during the day or night, it can have different frequency waves. And again, this is all about frequencies, right? So our brain can have a beta waves, which is a pretty rapid frequency. That is when we are in our analytical minds. We're thinking, we're doing. This is where we spend most of our daytime. When we slow it down a little bit, we can go into an alpha wave state. And that is where we have our imagination and creativity. We're able to express ourselves differently. We can get into that artistic side of ourselves. When we actually slow it down a little bit further, we get into a theta state. And we can measure this with an electroencephalograph, an EEG. We can hook that onto the brain and see these different wave patterns. And then there is the delta, which is much slower. That is our unconscious mind that we have no control over. That's something we go into, our delta waves, when we are in deep sleep. But right before that, in that theta wave, that's what we call our twilight. So it's like an active brain, but it's like our body is asleep. And that is that location of the brain. That is the state of the brain where we are the most suggestible. So I wanted to share this information with you, and I hope you can all just kind of play around and experiment with your emotions and becoming more aware of what your emotions are. Because sometimes we we get stuck in, for example, victim thoughts or thoughts of I'm not worthy, having these emotions all the time without even realizing that we're going there, because it becomes so much of a habit. And our body actually gets used to the chemicals that we're producing when we have these negative thoughts over and over again. It becomes an addiction. And when we don't have that minor bit of discomfort from that feeling, it doesn't feel right because that's what we're used to. And so to make those changes is really hard because it doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel natural. If we're used to telling ourselves that we're not worthy all the time, that we're not worthy of healing, we're not worthy of happiness, that we're not worthy of joy, when we're having those thoughts all the time, we get used to it. And when we start having anything that feels other than that, when we start feeling joyful and happy and worthy, it can become uncomfortable for a lot of people because they're not used to those different hormones and chemicals that get released. And it feels safer to just go back to what we know, what we're used to. So I would suggest, just practice becoming aware of these thoughts and emotions that we are emoting, especially when we're using our patches. You try to use really positive emotions and try to direct, not forcefully, but just an allowing. Hey, I am allowing, and this is what I am grateful for, because gratitude is the emotion that really brings the greatest response. It is the key. It is the key. So when we are grateful for something, that's usually because something has happened to be grateful for. So when we are actually grateful for something before it has happened, it's almost like we're tricking the body. It's like the mind is grateful that, oh my gosh, my leg is doing so much better. My leg is not swollen and it's not having the pain that it usually does. If we have that emotion before that has actually happened, and that intention before it has actually happened, it's like the brain doesn't know the difference between our imagination and reality, and it just assumes, oh, okay, this has happened, so we need to change everything up here and treat it as if it's already a done deal. That's the key. So next week, I kind of want to go into a little bit more of how to get into those theta waves, because sometimes, when we think about meditation, that can be such a challenging thought. And I want to go into some of the stories that Joe Dispenza talks about that give a perfect example of how we actually take on some of our health problems from things that have been suggested to us when we were just little children during a time of trauma, and how these can impact our lives. Once we understand how we've created some of our various problems, I think it becomes more possible to realize, hey, we can uncreate this. And the patches are a great help because, like I said, you don't need to know anything. You don't need to, the science is there. The science is there. But for me, it's fun because it's also something that I can believe in, because I really believe in this science. I have seen it work over and over again. So I can put my faith into it. I can put my intention and allow it to do the healing that it can for my body. Anyway, I thank you all for joining me today. And I hope you guys all have a wonderful Sunday. It's a beautiful day here in Cedar City. Hope it's all beautiful where you're at. And I will see you next week. Take care. Bye-bye.